Let me take you back to a day I'll never forget. A day that had the studio lights burning hotter than ever and the audience holding their breath. It was supposed to be just another episode of The View, the iconic daytime talk show where I've spent years as a behind-the-scenes observer, soaking in the chaos, the laughter, and the occasional fireworks. But this wasn't just any episode. This was the day Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg, two titans of television, clashed in a way that left everyone stunned, the cameras rolling, and me, standing just off stage, wondering how it all went so wrong. Before I dive into this wild story, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think sparked this epic showdown between Joy and Whoopi. Trust me, you'll want to weigh in after hearing this. It was a crisp morning in New York, and the studio was buzzing with its usual pre-show energy. I was there, as always, clipboard in hand, helping coordinate the flow of the show. The audience was filing in, phones already out, ready to capture every moment. The topic of the day was a hot-button issue, the state of women in comedy, a subject close to both Joy and Whoopi's hearts, given their legendary careers. Joy, with her razor-sharp wit and decades in stand-up, and Whoopi, a comedy icon who'd broken barriers in film and TV, were expected to bring their A-game. The producers had hyped it up as a lively debate, but nobody, least of all me, saw the storm coming. The show started smoothly enough. Whoopi, as the moderator, kicked things off with her signature blend of gravitas and humor. "Today, we're talking about women in comedy," she said, her voice warm but commanding. "It's a tough industry, and we've got two women here who've been in the trenches, me and Joy. Let's get into it." The audience clapped, and I could feel the energy in the room shift. Joy leaned forward in her chair, her trademark smirk already in place. "Oh, I'm ready, Whoopi," she said, her tone playful but with a hint of something sharper. I scribbled a note to the stage manager, "Keep an eye on Joy. She's got that look." The discussion started innocently enough, with the co-hosts sharing stories about their early days in comedy clubs, the sexism they faced, and the hustle it took to break through. But then Whoopi steered the conversation toward a more pointed question. "Joy, you've been doing this a long time," she said, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Some might say your style of comedy, very New York, very in your face, might not resonate with younger audiences today. Do you ever feel like you're fighting to stay relevant?" The question landed like a dart, and I saw Joy's smile freeze for a split second. The audience didn't catch it, but I did, standing just off stage. I'd seen that look before. Joy was about to go off. "Well, Whoopi," Joy replied, her voice steady but laced with an edge, "I don't think comedy has an expiration date. My audiences still laugh, and I'm still selling out shows. Relevance isn't about chasing trends, it's about being authentic." The crowd murmured in approval, but Whoopi wasn't letting it go. She leaned forward, her voice taking on that confrontational tone she's known for when she's not buying what someone's selling. "Authentic, sure," she said. "But let's be real, Joy. Comedy's changed. The kids today, they're into different things. Memes, social media, quick hits. Your stand-up, it's traditional. Don't you think it's time to let the new generation take the mic?" The studio went quiet. I glanced at the other co-hosts, Sunny Hostin and Sarah Haynes, who were exchanging nervous looks. This wasn't the light-hearted banter we'd rehearsed. Joy's eyes narrowed, and I could practically see the gears turning in her head. "Whoopi," she said, her voice sharp now, "are you suggesting I should retire just because I'm not making TikTok videos? I've been making people laugh for decades. My comedy's built on real life, not hashtags." The audience let out a few awkward chuckles, but the tension was palpable. I scribbled another note, "This is escalating. Be ready to cut to commercial." Whoopi didn't back down. "I'm not saying retire, Joy," she shot back, her voice rising slightly. "I'm saying the industry's moving forward, and maybe it's time to recognize that not every style ages well. You've had your time in the spotlight. Maybe it's time to step aside and let the new voices shine." The words hit like a slap, and I saw Joy's posture stiffen. She leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed, and I knew we were in trouble. "Step aside?" she repeated, her tone icy. Whoopi, I've been on this show longer than you. I've been making audiences laugh since before you were doing stand-up. And now you're telling me to step aside? That's rich. The audience gasped, and I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't just a debate about comedy anymore, it was personal. Whoopi's face tightened, and she waved a hand dismissively. Oh, please, Joy. Don't pull the seniority card. This isn't about who's been here longer. It's about who's still got something to say. And frankly, your jokes lately? They're feeling a little tired. The word, tired, hung in the air like a grenade. Sunny tried to jump in, saying something about the importance of diverse comedy styles, but Whoopi cut her off with a sharp look. We're having a real conversation here, Sunny. Let's not sugarcoat it. Joy's face flushed, and I could tell she was done playing nice. Tired? She said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. That's funny, coming from someone who's been coasting on the same shtick for years. You think you're the voice of the future? Your comedy's stuck in the 80s, Whoopi. At least I'm still out there, performing live, connecting with real audiences. The audience let out a collective ooh, and I saw the stage manager frantically signaling to the control room. I wrote another note, we need a break. Now. But Whoopi wasn't backing off. Connecting with audiences? She said, her voice now loud enough to echo through the studio. Joy, your audiences are the same people who've been watching this show since the 90s. You're preaching to the choir. Meanwhile, I'm out there reaching people across generations, movies, TV, Broadway. You're stuck in a comedy club, telling the same old stories. The accusation was brutal, and I saw Joy's hands grip the arms of her chair. You want to talk about reaching people? She fired back. Let's talk about your last few projects, Whoopi. What was it? Another cameo in a movie nobody watched. At least I'm still headlining. The studio was dead silent now, the kind of silence that makes your skin prickle. I could see the producers in the control room scrambling, but the cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of this train wreck. Joy's words had clearly stung, and Whoopi's face darkened. Headlining? She said, her voice low and dangerous. Joy, you're headlining because this show keeps you relevant. Without The View, you'd be playing to half-empty rooms in Jersey. The audience gasped again, and I felt my heart race. This was no longer a professional disagreement, it was a full-on personal attack. Joy leaned forward, her eyes blazing. Don't you dare, she said, her voice shaking with anger. I've earned my place here, Whoopi. I've fought for every laugh, every moment of airtime. You don't get to sit there and act like you're the only one who's paid her dues. You think you're untouchable because you've got an EGOT? Well, guess what? Your ego's bigger than your resume. The audience was stunned, and I saw Sarah and Sunny exchange panicked glances. I scribbled another note. We're losing control. Get ready to pull the plug. Whoopi's jaw clenched, and for a moment, I thought she might actually stand up and walk off. But instead, she leaned forward, her voice dripping with contempt. My ego? She said. Joy, you've been riding the same sarcastic, know-it-all act for years. You think you're speaking truth to power, but all you're doing is yelling at people who already agree with you. You're not challenging anyone, you're just loud. The words were like a knife, and I saw Joy's face go pale. But she wasn't backing down. Loud? Joy repeated, her voice rising. At least I'm consistent, Whoopi. At least people know what they're getting with me. You. One day you're preaching about unity, the next you're tearing down your own colleagues. You're not a truth teller, you're a hypocrite. The word hypocrite landed like a bomb, and the audience let out a collective gasp. I could see the producers in the control room waving frantically, but Whoopi wasn't stopping. A hypocrite? She shouted. I'm the only one here with the guts to call it like it is. You're so busy playing the lovable curmudgeon that you've forgotten how to have a real conversation. I stood frozen off stage, my clipboard forgotten in my hand. This was no longer a segment, it was a battle. Joy's eyes were blazing, and she opened her mouth to respond, but Sunny finally managed to jump in. Okay, ladies, let's take a breath, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Maybe we should move on to the next topic. But Whoopi shot her a look that could have stopped traffic. No, Sonny, she said. We're not moving on. Joy wants to throw punches, let's see if she can take them. Joy's laugh was bitter. Oh, I can take them, Whoopi, she said. But I'm not sure you can handle what's coming next. And that's where I'll pause this story, right at the moment when the studio felt like it was about to implode. The tension was unbearable, and I knew we were seconds away from something even bigger. Want to know how this showdown ended? Stay tuned for part 2, where I'll take you through the moment Joy and Whoopi push each other to the breaking point, and what it meant for the view. Let me know in the comments what you think sparked this fight. Was it professional rivalry, personal grudges, or something deeper? And don't forget to subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories from the wild world of television. I'm telling you this story as someone who was right there, just off stage, clipboard in hand, watching two legends, Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg, tearing to each other in a way that left the audience speechless, the producers panicking, and me wondering if the show would ever recover. If you haven't read part 1, go check it out to catch up on how this fight started. And as always, hit that subscribe button and drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think pushed Joy and Whoopi to this point? Let's dive back into the chaos. We left off with Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg locked in a verbal showdown, the studio air thick with tension. Joy had just called Whoopi a hypocrite, and Whoopi was daring her to handle what's coming next. The audience was frozen. The other co-hosts, Sunny Hostin and Sarah Haynes, looked like they wanted to disappear, and I was standing off stage, gripping my clipboard like it was a lifeline. The stage manager was frantically signaling to the control room, but the cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of what felt like a live television catastrophe. Joy leaned forward, her eyes blazing with the kind of fire only a seasoned comedian can muster. Oh, I can handle it, Whoopi, she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. But let's talk about what you can handle, being called out for acting like you're the only one who's ever struggled in this industry. You're not the gatekeeper of authenticity. The audience let out a collective gasp, and I could see Sunny's hands clench under the table. I scribbled a desperate note. We need to cut to commercial. This is a disaster. But Whoopi wasn't backing down. Her face was a storm cloud, and her voice took on a dangerous edge. Gatekeeper? She said, her tone dripping with disdain. Joy, I'm not gatekeeping anything. I'm just saying what everyone in this room is thinking. Your act's been the same for decades, and it's not landing like it used to. You're out here acting like you're still the queen of comedy, but the world's moved on. The words were brutal, and I saw Joy's jaw tighten. The studio was so quiet you could hear the hum of the lights overhead. Joy's laugh was sharp, almost bitter. The world's moved on. That's rich, Whoopi. You're sitting there acting like you're the voice of the future, but let's be honest, your biggest hits are behind you. You're resting on laurels while I'm still out there grinding, doing stand-up, writing books, keeping this show alive. The audience murmured, some clapping in support, but the tension was suffocating. I glanced at the producers in the control room, who were now on their headsets, arguing about whether to pull the plug. I wrote another note. If we don't break now, this is going viral for all the wrong reasons. Whoopi's eyes narrowed, and she leaned forward, her voice low and cutting. Keeping this show alive? Joy, let's not kid ourselves. This show thrives because we all bring something to the table. But you're so busy playing the loudmouth New Yorker that you've forgotten how to listen. You think you're carrying this show, but you're dragging it down with your same old shtick. The audience gasped again, and I felt my heart pound. This wasn't just a fight, it was a public dismantling of two women who'd worked side by side for years. Joy's face flushed red, and for a moment, I thought she might actually stand up and walk off. But instead, she leaned in, her voice shaking with barely contained fury. Dragging it down? Whoopi, I've been holding this show together while you coast through segments, acting like you're above it all. You think you're untouchable because you've got an Oscar? Well, newsflash, nobody cares about your awards when you're sitting here tearing down your own team. The word team landed hard, and I saw Sarah wince. The other co-hosts were now openly desperate, with Sunny trying to interject. "Ladies, maybe we can talk about the comedy industry as a whole," she started, but Whoopi cut her off with a sharp wave of her hand. "No, Sunny," Whoopi said, her voice rising. "Joy wants to make this personal, so let's make it personal. You've been on this show forever, acting like you own the place, but you're not the star you think you are. You're a one-trick pony, and the audience is tired of it." The audience let out a shocked "ooh," and I could see the camera operators zooming in, knowing this moment was going to be replayed endlessly. I scribbled another note: "We're past saving this. Brace for impact." Joy's hands were shaking now, but her voice was steady, laced with venom. "A one-trick pony? That's funny, coming from someone who's been recycling the same wise elder routine for years. You think you're profound because you've got a microphone and a platform, but all you're doing is bullying people who don't agree with you. That's not wisdom, Whoopi, that's arrogance." The word arrogance hung in the air like a thunderclap, and I saw Whoopi's face go still. For a moment I thought she might explode, but instead she leaned back, her smile cold and calculated. "Bullying?" Whoopi said, her voice now dangerously calm. "Joy, I'm not bullying you. I'm holding you accountable. You've been coasting on this show, acting like your jokes are still fresh, like your opinions are the only ones that matter. But the truth is, you're stuck in the past, and you're too stubborn to admit it." The audience was silent, the kind of silence that feels like the world is holding its breath. I could see the producers gesturing wildly, but there was no stopping this now. Joy's eyes flashed with something I'd never seen before, a mix of hurt and fury. "Stuck in the past?" she said, her voice rising to match Whoopi's earlier intensity. "Whoopi, you're the one who's stuck. You're so busy trying to be the moral authority of this show that you've forgotten how to be a colleague. You're not my boss, you're my co-host. And you don't get to sit there and lecture me like I'm some rookie who doesn't know the game." The audience erupted in a mix of gasps and scattered applause, and I felt my stomach twist. This was no longer a segment, it was a full-on war. Whoopi's face darkened, and she leaned forward, her voice now a low growl. "A colleague? Joy, colleagues respect each other. Colleagues don't sit there and undermine each other's work. You've been taking shots at me for years, little digs, little comments, and I've let them slide. But not today. Today, I'm done playing nice." The audience was stunned, and I saw Sunny and Sarah exchange a look of pure panic. I scribbled a final note: "We're done. Cut to commercial, or we're all fired." But before anyone could act, Joy stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. The sound echoed through the studio, and every eye was on her. "You're done playing nice?" she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Whoopi, I've spent years respecting you, defending you, even when you've made it impossible. But this is low, even for you. You're not calling me out, you're tearing me down because you can't stand that I'm still here, still relevant, still doing what I love." Her voice cracked, and I saw tears in her eyes, though she fought them back. "I came here today to talk about comedy, to share my passion, but instead, you've turned this into a personal attack. And I'm done." The studio was dead silent, and I could see the producers frozen in the control room. Joy reached for her microphone, her hands shaking as she started to unclip it. "Joy, don't do this," Sarah said softly, her voice barely audible. But Whoopi wasn't letting her go that easily. "Oh, so now you're walking away?" Whoopi said, her tone mocking. "That's real mature, Joy. Run off when things get tough. Show everyone what you're really made of." The words were cruel, and I saw Joy pause, her hands still on the microphone clip. She turned back to face Whoopi, her eyes blazing. "You want to talk about maturity?" she said, her voice steady now. "Let's talk about the maturity of ambushing your co-host on live TV. Let's talk about the maturity of using your platform to settle scores instead of having a real conversation. You're not holding me accountable, Whoopi, you're acting like a bully, and it's pathetic." The audience gasped, and I felt my heart stop. The cameras were still rolling, and I knew this moment was going to be dissected for years. Whoopi's face flushed, but she didn't back down. Pathetic? She said, her voice rising again. What's pathetic is you acting like you're above criticism. You've been on this show too long, Joy, thinking you're untouchable. Well, guess what? You're not. And someone needs to tell you that. Joy's laugh was bitter, and she shook her head. You know what, Whoopi? I used to admire you. I used to think you were someone who spoke truth to power, who lifted others up. But today you've shown everyone who you really are, someone who tears down her own team to feel better about herself. And that's not just sad, it's shameful. Joy set her microphone down on the table with deliberate care, then picked up her notes and purse. I'm done here, she said, looking directly at Whoopi. Not because I can't handle criticism, but because I don't deserve this. And neither does this audience. She turned to the crowd, her voice softening. I'm sorry you had to see this. This isn't what I wanted for today. And with that, she walked off the set, her heels clicking against the floor, leaving behind a stunned audience and a panel of co-hosts scrambling to fill the silence. Whoopi sat there, her face a mix of anger and shock, as the reality of what had just happened sank in. The cameras lingered on her for a moment, capturing the moment her composure cracked. Sunny tried to pivot, saying something about moving to the next segment, but her voice was shaky. The producers finally cut to commercial, and I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The studio erupted in whispers, and I could see the audience pulling out their phones, already posting about what they'd just witnessed. As I stood there, still clutching my clipboard, I couldn't help but feel a mix of disbelief and sadness. Joy and Whoopi were supposed to be colleagues, allies, two women who'd fought their way to the top in a tough industry. But that day, something broke, maybe years of unspoken grudges, maybe professional jealousy, maybe just the weight of being in the spotlight for so long. The fallout was immediate. Social media exploded, with hashtags like #JoyVersusWhoopi trending within minutes. Clips of the confrontation were everywhere, dissected by fans, critics, and even other celebrities. In the days that followed, both Joy and Whoopi issued statements, each carefully worded to avoid admitting fault. The producers called an emergency meeting, and I was there, listening as they debated how to move forward. Some wanted an on-air apology, others thought it was best to let the dust settle. Joy returned to the show the next week, her humor as sharp as ever, but there was a new tension in the air. Whoopi, for her part, seemed quieter, more reserved, as if the weight of that day was still on her shoulders. Looking back, I still don't know what sparked it all. Was it years of professional rivalry bubbling over? Personal grudges we never saw coming? Or just two strong-willed women who'd reached their breaking point? I'll let you decide. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think drove Joy and Whoopi to that moment? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories from behind the scenes of The View. Trust me, there's always more drama where this came from.